Cover Three Deep Raiders podcast. Dwayne Douglas in the building. My partners are off with family. Sean Wahoo Raiders in Utah doing his thing with his family out there, and then Monster Man's Ken is doing his thing in Jersey. He works in construction, all those buildings out there. He's doing all that stuff. But we right now, we have Ryan Holmes of the Raider Ramble. He watches a lot of video and watches the Raiders on tape, and tape doesn't lie. The eye in the sky doesn't lie, as they always say. So, Ryan, thanks for joining us here on the Cover 3D Raider podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. So being going in film and digging all that stuff up, I mean, that can be a boring thing to do sometimes. I mean, there's no you never miss you watch it and you don't hear and there's no commentary. It's just you watching three different views of play after play after play. You have some good stuff online. Where can people find you on Twitter and Instagram?
Yeah, I post weekly breakdowns of the game, usually Monday or Tuesday, the week after. So if it's Sunday game, it's usually up within a couple of days. They can find me on Twitter. The handle's at RHOLM22. So it's at RHome22. Don't do much on Instagram. There's some stuff on there. It's the same handle at RHome22, but it's usually tagged through the Raider Ramble for that.
No problem. As far as what made you want to do this, like a lot of folks, they watch the game, win, lose, or draw. They just go and if they lose, it's the car's fault. If they win, it's Josh Jacobs who won the game for him or something like that. You know how Raider fans could be on Twitter. What are your thoughts about your mindset when you're watching film and kind of giving those Raider fans something that they can't see on the TV broadcast?
Well, I've been doing it for 3 years now. I'm a season ticket holder. Enjoy going to the games and seeing just a different view than you see from the broadcast. And for me, going back and watching the film on Mondays or Tuesdays, it's more about the coverages, the stuff that you can't see going on in the defensive backfield. And then you actually learn a lot about defensive line play, just watching it, what stunts were on, who may have gotten some pass rush that you didn't really see show up in a game when the camera switches during a broadcast. So it's something I just enjoyed. I've always been a big fan. I've been a Raiders fan my whole life, big on the NFL draft. So I do a little bit of college stuff too, but I just love, for the past 3 years, just going back in and trying to figure out what's going on and just really figure out the coverages and figure out, what players are making plays away from the ball that you can't see.
Are the Raiders defensively, are they as bad on film as they are on the regular broadcast? Because this year has been pretty brutal to watch as far as like people just being wide open. There's no jam at the line of scrimmage. Some of these tight ends will, it's 3rd and 12, and then you have a linebacker drop 14 yards. It just doesn't seem like real good football there. Their lack of pass rush, all those things. What is the biggest? I mean, if you could do like a top 3 of the biggest things that's wrong with this Raider defense that you've seen so far.
Well, yes, it is as bad watching it on film as it is watching it in person. It varies from week to week. This past week, obviously against the Chargers, it was the breakdowns in coverage in the secondary. You had a lot of young players back there, Dallin Levitt, Keyshawn Nixon, that played a lot of snaps that just aren't used to that. So some weeks the pass rush is getting close. Like against the Chargers, it was okay. Other weeks it's non-existent. So they just never really married the two together. They haven't shown the pass rush and the coverage in the same weeks. Sometimes it's just not understanding your leverage and where your help's from. Obviously, missing open field tackles and missed tackles in general is a big thing. So coverage, missed tackles, and then the inability to create consistent pressure, you add those up and you get the worst defense in the league, basically, statistically. And just getting off the field on 3rd down. They're over 50% allowed conversion rate, which is not good.
Why won't they put Joyner back at safety?
That's a great question. I've thought about that for the last couple of years. Basically, what it comes down to is in Paul Gunther's scheme, it's built around the slot corner. He wants to play a nickel defense, a 4-2-5. He wants a slot corner that has responsibility in the run game, fitting gaps. He wants a physical player, which Joyner kind of is for a smaller guy. He's not afraid to throw his body in there.
Mhm.
He just can't hold up in coverage right now. He should have playing safety from the minute they got him. They tried him at slot corner with the Rams. It didn't work out. They moved him to free safety for 1 year, and he had a pretty good year. And that's when the Raiders brought him in. But a lot of it just goes around the scheme Paul Gunther had. I don't think Joyner is going to be on this team next year, and if he is, he's probably going to be moved back to safety when you bring in a new defensive coordinator. I think it all falls on Paul Gunther on that one.
Yeah, it looked like the Raiders were talking to Chris Harris, and I got excited for a second because I said, "Oh, Chris Harris, put him in the slot, and then you can move Joyner back to safety," and that never materialized. And Harris ended up leaving the Raiders facility and going to the Chargers because they were going to play him at where he naturally is at slot. So it's interesting that I didn't realize how much the slot corner has to be a viable big time player in Paul Gunther's scheme. Did you happen to see what Will Compton said about?
I did, and everything that he said shows up on tape. So I know a lot of people are thinking it's sour grapes, and he's just saying this and that. If you watch the film and you break it down, everything he said is accurate.
Yeah, especially it's a lot going on. So I that's kind of crazy to see that happen with the Raiders here. They haven't had a good defense in a long time. I know you're a long-term Raider fan like I am. This has not been this has been like 20, 30 years since this team has not been able to do this, build a defense. Let's just jump right into that. I was going to save it until later, but let's just jump right into it. Who do you want to see as the Raiders defensive coordinator, and who do you think will be the defensive coordinator for next year?
I'm not against switching to a 3-4. I know the Raiders don't have a lot of difference makers, and a lot of fans get caught up in the, well, what are you going to do with Farrell? What are you going to do with Crosby? For me, a 3-4 is cheaper to build. It's easier to generate pressure. You can give a lot of different looks. You can vary your who's coming and who's not and drop out. I think they do have some pieces for that. Both of their middle linebackers, or Littleton and Kwiatkowski, come from a 3-4. Hankins can play the nose. Farrell's fine at 5 technique, although you're not going to get much pass rush there. But so for me, I lean more to the 3-4 guys. Vic Fangio is who I would prefer if the Broncos let him go. For me, I would like to see an older guy come in that's been established, that has success in this league, that has run top 10 defenses, but a guy that's also not a
teacher, right? Kind of guy, yeah, guy's a teacher, yeah.
And the guy that's not going to bail after 2 or 3 years if he has any success. You want a guy that's going to be here, doesn't have aspirations to be a head coach, because the worst thing that could happen is Gruden goes and hires a young guy who comes in and turns this thing around in a year or two, and then he's gone, and you got to start over.
Yeah.
So I look at the Vic Fangio. I'm not opposed to, if you want to stay in a 4-3, Marvin Lewis, or you need to have someone that can teach, that has had success in this league. I see Raheem Morris would be a good choice. He has connections to Gruden. Back to the 3-4, Joe Barry he's the linebackers coach for the Rams, who's had success there, and he's learned under Brandon Staley. He's had a really good run here in a year or two, and he's worked under Fangio. But Barry was on Gruden's staff in Tampa. For me, I'd like to see Gruden stay away from his connections, the guys that have coached under him past, and bring someone in fresh that has some ideas that it's just not connected or tied to him. We've seen that, and it hasn't really worked out with some of the coaches he's brought in. But to answer your question, Raheem Morris would be a good fit. Marvin Lewis, Joe Barry.
There's a name you didn't say yet that Raider fans are going crazy for. Are you not a fan of Wade Phillips?
I think you're going to go Chris Richard. Is that the name we're talking about?
No, I didn't hear you say Wade Phillips.
Wade Phillips I would be okay with it. He wouldn't be my first choice.
Oh, okay, that's what you watch films. I want to make sure. So is there a reason why he wouldn't be your first choice? Because that's everybody. It seems like that's the guy who everybody is on the tip of their tongue. They want Wade Phillips in. Why would he not be your first choice?
I just think overall the last year or two there with the Rams, his defenses just didn't play up to par. I know he has a track record of turning teams around. He's a little bit older than some of the other candidates. I want to say he's in his early 70s. I could be wrong. It might be late 60s, but
he's 73.
Yeah, older guy, 73. I mean, 2 or 3 years maybe with him. and then you'd want him to bring in someone under him to learn under him that could take over, assuming that they have success. But I would be opposed to him. He'd probably be fifth or sixth on my list. I wouldn't have him at the top. The only advantage you'd have is he's worked with Corey Littleton. He's worked with LaMarcus Joyner if he stays on this roster and knows how to use those two players.
Yeah.
He's not going to have Aaron Donald on the defensive line either. And he's worked with some good pass rushers. And just overall, I think there's better fits out there than Wade Phillips.
So here is a guy who I feel like, because Gruden loves veterans, who I think who was a free agent, who is not gonna his contract is gonna be up in Denver. I think I'm gonna blink and the Raiders are gonna sign Von Miller, in the offseason. If
I would have no problem with that.
Yes, and depending on what price tag is, I mean, I actually at this point with the pass rush of the Raiders, like my God, I don't really care what the price tag is for him. Do you feel like that would be if they went to the 3-4, would that be a good move? Bring in Von Miller, help some of these young pass rushers. Looking what Wade Phillips did with Connor Barwin, maybe that's something that Max Crosby can do with the Raiders there. I mean, thoughts about that possibility.
Yeah, Von Miller would be a tremendous addition. He's only 30, 31 years old. He has another 4 or 5 years left where he can be an elite pass rusher. And just get a guy that can get to the quarterback as a threat that's going to draw blockers away from the other guys and give you more one-on-ones. That's another reason why I'm leaning more towards Fangio. You have Von Miller as a potential fit. Justin Simmons would be my number one target as a free safety to pair with Jonathan Abram. And get Fangio in. He has some connection to those Denver players. Shelby Harris, a former Raider, is another guy they should have interest in on the interior as a free agent, depending on the scheme they go with. But if they do go to a 3-4, even to stay in a 4-3, pass rush is absolutely the number one priority, along with a free safety. Those are the two biggest needs on the team. And whether that's Ngakoue that comes over from Baltimore, Von Miller, there's a handful of pass rushers. There's not a ton of elite guys, but there's enough guys available that can get you 8 to 10 sacks.
Yeah. I'm looking at brutal game by 27 last week. I mean, just brutal. We talked about it on the Cover 3D Raiders podcast about we us liking Trayvon Mullen a lot. Is he just in the middle? I know his PFF is only like around 77 out of all the guys who qualify. Is he's not dominant? Is he in the middle? Like where does he fall in the class of corners in the National Football League?
Watching him on tape, I feel he's a solid number 2. Is he a guy that has flashes for a couple of weeks where he can be a number 1? Yeah, he can. Is he a guy you're going to line up as your number 1 guy for 16 weeks and he's going to take away the other team's best receiver? Probably not. He's a guy that can start in this league. His biggest issue is it's more technical. It's kind of with his feet. When his footwork is wrong, he tends to grab and he gets a lot of penalties. And we saw that last week. Yeah. He's way better in press man, but unfortunately Gunther had him playing a lot of off coverage, which he's just not good at. It's something that he really needs to work on. He played a lot of cover 3. The Raiders were basically a cover 3, cover 6 team this year. They were primarily a zone team, and they're drafting man corners. So I don't understand that. I think it was more the pass rush wasn't going to get there, and Gunther wanted with the young corners just to play a little bit more zone. It backfired. And his scheme was a little sophisticated, as you heard Will Compton mention. So a lot of times you see all those guys, they just didn't understand who to guard and who to cover. Last week against the Chargers, they were in cover 6 at the end of the half. Both of those throws between Mullen and Worley, those are both on Mullen. He just didn't sink and get underneath those corner routes, and he just jumped the flat route for no reason with 19 seconds left in the half. But Mullen has a chance to be a good corner. I don't think I'm ever going to put him in as an elite number 1. It's the footwork. He's kind of long-legged. He doesn't get in and out of his breaks very well, out of his back pedal. He's not going to stay with the smaller, shiftier guys. But if he's used in a system where he can play press man coverage, then you might have something.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Abram, he's wearing 24. We all know that it's going to be, Raider fans are going to hold him accountable. If you wear that number, you gotta, people are going to hold you accountable for your play. Is he basically? It looks like it's 10 people trying to play one defense, and Abrams playing a defense all by himself. Is that kind of like what it's like when you watch it on film? Because it just seems like he is just on an island by himself, just playing a different game than the rest of the defense. As bad as the defense is.
I think in certain situations he gets over aggressive and he kind of freelances and he vacates his zone coverage responsibilities. He hasn't been that good in man either, down the field. He's more of a guy that needs to be played up in the box as a box safety. He's really good in run support. He can cover the flat and the curl routes. It's when he's working down the field against post routes, go routes, anything that's 15, 20 yards down the field where he has to work backwards instead of come forward is where he struggles. I actually think if the team moves to a 3-4, this could benefit Abram too, because you can
Yeah.
move him in as a nickel linebacker and have him play close to the line of scrimmage. He's a threat to blitz. You would need two safeties at that point, on the roster that can play back. But he's a versatile guy that can move around, but his strength in the deep coverage is just not there right now. And it has a lot to do with his aggressive tendencies and just he hasn't played a lot. He's played one game as a rookie, and
Yeah.
he's missed 2 or 3 games this year. So he probably has 14 games in his career, 14 or 15 under his belt.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as everybody's ready to, you know, Twitter can be funny with Raider fans. They're all ready to trade Ruggs already. They want to get Ruggs off the team. When I watch film, I do see I see what a lot of. I mean, Derek is not going to force the ball in an area where it's two guys on two one receiver on two when two men and two people on coverage. When I have a one on one with Waller or one on one with somebody else, he's going to make the right decisions. Um, you know, where have the Raiders gone wrong with Ruggs? Because people watch football, they watch Jefferson, they watch all these the rookie receivers go nuts, and they want to see their guy do the same thing in Las Vegas. Is it more be patient and look and maybe you'll see it down the road like with Corey Davis of the Titans, or just he and Brian Edwards are just really struggling to catch the pro game?
I think it's more wait and see with Ruggs. It's a usage issue. It's the routes that they're asking him to run. When he was in college at Alabama, he ran a lot of underneath routes, a lot of slant routes, and took him to the house. Once he was able to pull away from defenders, they didn't really use him on go routes at Alabama. And then with the Raiders, he's being used as a decoy. They wasted the 12th pick in the draft on a guy this year that they didn't really incorporate into their game plans. They haven't really schemed anything for him. It's more pull coverage, affect the safeties. And if you kind of look at it, Carr's trust has grown with Aguilar early, and he kind of
Yeah.
stayed with that. And the system is basically designed to. Darren Waller's the number one receiver. He's got 100. He's going to have 100 catches by the time the season's over. He's the number one target. They want to get the ball to Jacobs and the running backs out of the backfield. On third down, they're going to Hunter Renfrow. So there's not a lot of design concepts to get the ball in Ruggs' hands. That falls on John Gruden.
Yeah.
And there's the overall usage. I understand what the speed does, and it opens stuff up for everyone else. But you can get a guy with speed to do that with using different resources, not the 12th pick in the first round. I don't know. Those other receivers are going off, but Justin Jefferson is one of the top 2 targets on his team, and some of these other rookies are the number 1 target, so they're getting a lot of balls.
Yeah.
Where Ruggs just hasn't. He's never going to be a guy that's a 100 reception guy. He's going to be more of a guy that 60, 70 receptions. You're looking for 1,200 yards, big plays down the field, explosive plays. But he's also got, I thought they would throw a lot more screens too, a lot more slants, because he's a physical guy that'll fight for the football. They just haven't done it. And for some reason, there's a chemistry issue with Carr. I don't know what it is. But they're not using him properly, in my opinion.
In the Atlanta game, they had a 4th and 3 where they threw that bomb they threw to him. I mean, that's just, he's not just like people are comparing him to James Jett. He's not James Jett. I mean, the guy can dunk a basketball. He can jump out of the building. Like he throw him the football down the field high. He can go get it over some of these corners. I mean, these corners, if they can make plays on the ball, these cornerbacks, they'd be playing offense. I mean, so he can do those things. I'm not sure why the Raiders don't take advantage of that. And also in the Jet game, on the game winner, that was when the players say that was the first time they ran an out and up. That's comical to me.
Yeah, he also did in the first KC game at KC on a ball and third down the sideline where he jumped and
Oh,
took
that
it
was
away from the
oh yeah, that
defensive
was
back.
a nice one.
He actually has really big hands. He has his hands measure 10.5 inches at the combine, which are almost a full inch and a quarter bigger than Derek Carr's. So he has the hands of a guy that's like 6'3", 6'4", even though he's 5'10". And he can go up and get the ball. The Atlanta throw that you mentioned, he showed good body control. It was kind of underthrown, and he worked back to it. Showed great adjustment on that ball. But he's just a guy that they need to use. James Jett was just a straight line
Yeah.
speed guy, hit him for a bomb. The interesting thing is after the Kansas City game, a lot of teams were rolling a safety over the top of Ruggs no matter where he went. They were not getting beat deep. But over the last probably 4 or 5 games, that's not the case. Teams are covering him one-on-one. They're not rolling safeties over anymore, and they're just not taking shots to him. He's open plenty. He's just never the first option. He's always the third or fourth read on most of these plays,
Okay.
that's concerning. That falls on the coach and the scheme more than anything.
Yeah.
They're not trying to find ways to get the ball in his hands.
So offensively, you're seeing maybe a little bit of a fade here as far as like red zone. I thought the decision making in the red zone in the San Diego, in the Charger game, it was putrid. And I thought I'm sitting there watching that game and I'm saying to myself, how could you not run a quarterback power right here? The quarterback is running the ball great. Mario is a tough physical guy who's running all over the place. He has waning accuracy issues, so you don't want to throw the ball too much with him, especially in tight spaces. You saw that on the Chris Harris interception. The Raiders also, I guess, Josh Dubow put out a stat that said the Raiders lead the league in red zone field goals. What's the problem with the red zone with the Raiders? And they don't use my favorite Raider, Foster Moreau, at all. It seems like.
You basically covered it. The number one reason why they're not good in the red zone is they haven't been able to run the ball when they get inside the 10. And John Gruden is just going to keep pounding his head against the wall, and he's going to try to run it. The Raiders run on 1st and 10 more than any team, or I think they're 4th in the league in running on 1st and 10. Teams have caught up to their scheme offensively. They know what plays are coming in the red zone. He runs a lot of the same plays and concepts, whether it's the return route to Hunter Renfrow. It could be a corner route out of a 3-by-1. The ball he threw an interception on against the Colts to Waller. They've run that play numerous times with Aguilar. They ran it with Ruggs in the Cleveland game where Ruggs was called out of bounds. So varying the play calls down there, scoring touchdowns, as bad as the defense is, the offense hasn't done its job in the red zone. They move the ball fine between the 20s. Yep. I think the biggest thing is they don't use Waller enough in the red zone. And this force feeding and consistent wanting to put Jason Witten on the field over Foster Moreau is mind-boggling. I've been on that since week 1 or week 2. If you go back to my Twitter account, it's like this guy should not be taking snaps away. The play Derek Carr hurt his groin on was 3rd and goal, 2 or 3, and it was designed play for Jason Witten. You should not be designing plays for Jason Witten when he's 38, 39 years old. There's no separation, and he can't get open. And just, they need to be more creative with Ruggs down there. I thought that they'd be using Brian Edwards more the last 4 or 5 weeks in the red zone. He's a big physical guy that can play the X receiver, and when they don't have to put Waller out there. But for some reason, you're seeing Renfrow, Aguilar, Ruggs out there when they're in 11 personnel, and then when they go to 12 personnel, you're seeing a lot of Witten over Moreau. Moreau caught 5 touchdowns last year. He should easily have that this year with the number of red zone opportunities the Raiders have. They haven't been putting him in, so they're just leaving too many points on the field when they get down there. They're scoring 27 a game. They could easily be scoring 30, 31 a game.
Which is like, so let's go back to one thing that I'm thinking about in my head is the best team in the league, the Kansas City Chiefs. Their head coach, one of the best play callers of all time, had Matt Nagy by his side, had Doug Peterson by his side, also had relinquished some of the play calling to Eric Bieniemy as well. I'm not saying give up play calling, but shouldn't Gruden be thinking about having somebody who is more creative? I mean, they do some of the most creative things at the 5-yard line that I've ever seen in my life. It's almost like they get to the 5-yard line of Chiefs and it's like a college game. It's unbelievable when you watch it, Ryan.
Yeah, you're dead on. When I watch the Chiefs play, the stuff that they do inside the 5-yard line with Kelsey and Hill are stuff that you or dream about Waller and Ruggs having those opportunities.
Yeah.
For me, I don't think Greg Olson's going anywhere but the Raiders, and I mentioned this on a different podcast last week, they don't have a quarterbacks coach. So for me, if I was John Gruden, I would go to the college ranks, find a young
Yeah.
guy that's been in a successful program and bring him in as a quarterback coach, but kind of just another sounding board for Gruden and give him different play types and different stuff that's going on right now, creative ways to use some of his speed, and just a guy that can learn under him for the next couple of years. And they need a young guy in there that can talk to Gruden and try to get some of these concepts in. It can't just be lining up in 14 personnel, 23 personnel. We're going to pound it in and we're going to do this. They don't run a lot of play action in the red zone either. And the two guys in the league that lead, or the two league leaders in play action touchdowns inside the 5 are Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. Like, Derek Carr needs those opportunities. Like, they have a running game with Josh Jacobs. Like, fake it to him and stop running spider 2 wide banana every time you get down there either. Those teams know that play's coming.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it just has to do with, creativity and finding different ways to keep the defense off balance. I thought they were going to do some zone keeps with Mariota on that last drive in overtime all the way down the field until the Chargers stopped it and then went away from it the minute they got to the 5-yard line. So, and that play call, I'm not on the play call on 3rd and goal from the 5 when they basically went spider 2, tried to throw it in the flat. Even if Ingold catches that, he's getting tackled at the 4-yard line.
Yeah,
They don't throw the ball in the end zone enough.
Yes, yes, the ball is not in the actual end zone. I thought 2 things they could have ran on that play was, I don't know if you remember in the Bear game on the game-winning drive where they kind of rolled to the right and then Foster Moreau kind of dragged to the left and it was wide open. I thought they could have run something like that, or like I said, he's running the football like. The quarterback he is really running the football. I'm for bringing Mariota back just for some change of speed during games. Sometimes he's really good at that. Another thing about Gruden play calling, he doesn't revisit plays. Like, they have the huge play to Foster Moreau in the Colts game, and I never see anything like that again for the rest of the game. Like, do you see like him just abandoning that play? I mean, sometimes, I watch some of the guys like Kyle Shanahan, who, if you don't stop it, he's gonna keep calling it.
He ran it one other time in that game after that, but it wasn't open. But no, you don't really see that. You don't see a plays that worked one week, they just don't show up the next week. It's on to a different game plan for a different team. Even in the running game, like early in the season, you saw a lot of variant, you saw a lot of gap, you saw a lot of pen and pull the first time through the Chargers, outside zone, inside zone. The last probably 4 or 5 weeks, it's primarily just been inside zone. Like, he kind of got away from varying up the run game. The interior 3 of Hudson, Good, and Jackson just haven't played to the same level they did earlier in the season. But yeah, there is some of that where stuff that is successful, he kind of drifts away from it. I'm not going to bury John Gruden too much. He's turned this offense around, but there are some issues that do need to be addressed in terms of predictability and just personnel groupings. You kind of know, and this was kind of the same way when he was here the first time for the older Raider fans. You knew when Tyrone Wheatley was in there running. You knew when Gardner was in probably throwing. When Zach Crockett came in, it's a run right up the middle. Like, you knew exactly what was coming. They still have to execute it, but you kind of see that now too. When Zay Jones comes in, they're probably running it. You can just pay attention to who the wide receivers are on the field, and you kind of have an idea of what they're going to do.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's true. The worst off-season move was
the worst off. I would say Carl Nassib at this point. For me, I didn't understand the 3-year contract with the guaranteed money they have. They don't have an out in that contract till for another year. So he's on this roster next year, no matter what. He hasn't produced. I would say Malik Collins is probably right next to him, although it was a 1-year deal and they can get out of it. So that's why I would lean more towards Nassib. But for me, neither one of those guys has done anything of value.
The draft pick that you thought was going to be the most disappointing draft pick so far
for this year. Yeah. This is easy for me. I was a huge Amik Robertson guy. I loved his tape, loved him in college. And I thought, okay, here's a physical guy that's not afraid to mix it up. He's going to get in there. He's going to fight for some slot snaps by the middle of the season. And he can't even find the field right now. So I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know if it's mental, grasping the system, what he's doing in practice. But there is no way that he should be losing snaps to Keyshawn Nixon and Isaiah Johnson and guys like that.
No, yeah. I mean, that is That's up there. That's up there. That's up there. I mean, for me, as I thought, I cannot imagine a world where I thought Brian Edwards would have this many receptions right now. I mean, even with Ruggs' struggles, I thought the guy who kind of resembled just like, just that big physical receiver that Carr likes, I thought for sure. I thought for
Yeah,
sure.
you heard in training camp he was making spectacular plays left and right. So this is a guy that won the starting job at a camp, gets hurt, misses a couple of games, and now he can't even find the field over Zay Jones. And Aguilar's done well, but Aguilar's more of a role player. Like there's snaps that
Yeah.
he should have lost back to Edwards when you get into the red zone.
Yeah.
And just, some fade balls to him, some slants to him. They tried to throw a slant, I want to say against the Colts to Aguilar, had no chance. Like Aguilar's not catching slants in the red zone with a safety bearing down on him. You need to
Yeah,
throw that
he's
to a
not
bigger
doing
body.
that. He's not doing that.
And
Go ahead.
Edwards reminded me a lot of Mushin Muhammad when he came out. I don't know. A lot of Raiders
Yes,
fans remember him with the Panthers. But
from the
kind of
Panthers.
big
Yeah,
body guy, surprisingly faster than you thought, but was just physical and could make plays.
yeah. Last one. Would you bring back Tyrell Williams?
No, not at this point.
Last point.
Those
Okay.
snaps need to go. For me, I think Aguilar is coming back. I think that Gruden's not going to let him walk after this. You need to figure out how to incorporate Ruggs and Edwards into this offense, along with Waller, and you still have Renfro. So I don't really see a spot on this team for Tyrell Williams. Not at $11 million on his
If
cap hit.
if they gave him a scintillated deal, would that be something that, because he's been hurt forever?
I'd probably still just hope that they were right on the pick with Edwards, and then try to find a bigger body guy in free agency. Later down the barrel that might have some special teams capabilities that could help out there and help out in a couple of different roles. But I don't see Tyrell Williams on this team next year.
I got one more. Did they overdraft Josh Jacobs? And the only reason why I say that is because in that draft, I wanted 3 defensive guys, and then draft David Montgomery later on. That was like my mock, because I'm totally against taking running backs in the first round if I can avoid it. He's really good, no question about it. But should they have gone to kind of ensure defensive success to try to get 3 picks to three defensive players in that first round?
I'm not going to say they overdrafted him. At that point, I wanted Montez Sweat.
Yes.
And when they took Jacobs, I was hoping that he got to the 27th pick where they took Abram. And I want to say Washington traded up to 26 and took him one spot ahead of Abram.
Yeah.
I could argue they overdrafted Farrell and Abram and Ruggs pretty easily.
Farrell. We know. I mean, I'm sitting there watch. A friend of mine is a Bucks fan, and he just talks about White every day.
That's what I wanted.
And then that's who we wanted. So I don't know as far as that goes. Hey, listen, Ryan, thanks for joining us here on the Cover 3D Raiders podcast. I really appreciate it. Well, this is my kind of stuff, just diving into tape and talking about some of the stuff that fans don't see. We get hot and fans get hot and heavy about certain things, but there's a lot that goes into it. So definitely appreciate you coming on. And hey, listen, we'll talk to you later on.
All right. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
No, take care. Take time.
All right. Bye.
Bye. 1 second. Let me get out of here first.